Hey there! This video will show you how to knit leg warmers on the Knits Cool Studio using your own yarn. For this project, you will need the Knits Cool Studio with all of its components. You will also need yarn. You can choose any type of yarn that you like, but what would work best is selecting a yarn that is labeled as bulky or chunky weight. The amount of yarn you will need really depends on how long you would like to make your leg warmers. Most yarn comes in 100-gram balls and should be enough to make medium-length leg warmers, but if you aren't sure, get 2 balls just to be safe. First, select your medium Knits Cool posts and insert them into the holes in the studio. Make sure you hear them click in. For this project, you will cast on 20 stitches. This indicates the circumference of your leg warmers. To cast on, take your yarn and find the tail end. Make a slip knot. It's like making a knot, but not pulling the tail all the way through. Once you've made your slip knot, insert the loop onto the right post. Tighten the loop until it's snug. If you don't want to make a slip knot, you can always just tie a loop onto the post instead. Make sure your yarn is looped through the yarn holder. This is super important because it keeps your yarn towards the back and helps you make perfect stitches. Okay, let's cast on our 20 stitches. Make a loop with the yarn and slip it onto the post. You can tighten it a little so it's snug. You now have 2 stitches casted on. Continue making loops until you have 20 stitches on the right post. How easy was that? Okay, let's get knitting. Remove the first stitch from the right post and pull the yarn through it. This makes a new loop, and then you just pop it onto the left post. Tighten it up a little by pulling on the yarn. Now take the next stitch from the right post and pull the yarn through it, and place it onto the left post again. Keep doing this until all the stitches are knit onto the left post and there are no more stitches on the right post. Keep in mind that this row is loose, as your first stitches are just twisted loops and not fully formed yet. After this, your stitches will be a breeze to knit. Awesome! You have now knitted 1 row. Check your row counter to make sure that the button is set to 1. Now, knit all of these stitches back onto the right post. You've now knitted 2 rows. You can click to the number 2. Now keep in mind, at this point you're probably thinking, my stitches still look wrong and nothing like knitted fabric. But actually, this is the way they're supposed to look, a little messy looking. So don't worry, keep going. Once your knitting starts to grow, you'll see your work looking more even and like a knitted design. Alright, let's continue knitting back and forth until you get the length you want. Because you are designing these leg warmers, you can decide what length you want to make them and what finishes you want to add. Make sure to keep track of how many rows you knit, so you can knit the exact same number of rows for the other pair. This pair has 35 rows. Now that you've finished your rows, your project should look like this. Now let's cast off. This is super simple and fun. Knit 2 stitches onto the opposite post. By now you should be a pro at knitting your stitches. Then, grab the bottom stitch and slip it over the top stitch, and let it go. Next, knit another stitch onto the post. So now you have 2 stitches on this post again. Grab the bottom stitch and slip it over the top stitch. Keep doing this until you have only 1 remaining stitch on the post. Now take this 1 stitch with your project off the post completely. Leave a long tail, thread the tail through the loop, and tighten. You should have a neat finished edge like this. Let's sew your leg warmers together. Take the sewing needle that comes with the studio and thread it through the tail end of the yarn. Next, fold your leg warmers in half with the end edges facing each other. Take your sewing needle and insert into a few loops on both sides of the leg warmer. Now don't worry about exactly which loops to sew, as long as you catch some loops on each side and that they are somewhat across from each other. Continue sewing this seam until you reach the other side. It's important when you are sewing seams to not pull too tight. At this point, you can tie a knot to secure your seam. There you have it, your first leg warmer is complete. So now, repeat these steps to make the other leg warmer so you have a matching pair. That's it! Congratulations! You just made your first pair of Knits Cool leg warmers. Happy knitting!